My husband liked to joke, if CPS ever walked in here, they'd think you were the crazy one, not me. What he didn't know was that the day he actually called CPS on me, I already had months of screenshots, audio recordings, and a pediatrician who had been quietly documenting everything he and his mother were doing. Before I get into it, if you like long Reddit-style stories about toxic relationships, postpartum struggles, crazy in-laws, CPS investigations, and legal revenge, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. It really helps more people find these full stories. I'm 30F, my soon-to-be ex-husband, Mark, is 33M. We have one child together, our daughter, Lily. She's 2 now. When we got married, I honestly believed I was marrying a solid, boringly reliable guy with a slightly overbearing mom. Not perfect, but safe. The type of man who would never cheat, never hit, never get arrested. The type who paid his bills on time and complained about the recycling schedule. I did not imagine the type who would call CPS on his own wife and try to give our baby to his mother. We'd been together 6 years, married for 3 when I got pregnant. Lily was planned, wanted, prayed for. I'd had a miscarriage before, so this pregnancy came with a layer of constant anxiety. The first trimester was rough. Nausea, exhaustion, a constant fear of seeing blood every time I went to the bathroom. Mark was okay. He went to some appointments, brought me crackers and ginger ale, complained that I wasn't fun anymore when I fell asleep at 8 p.m. His mother, Diane, was the bigger force from day one. She was thrilled to be finally getting a grandbaby. Her words, not mine. She immediately started calling the baby my little angel and saying things like, "I've been waiting my whole life to be a grandma. You're just the incubator, sweetie." With a laugh, of course. Always with a laugh. I brushed off the incubator comment as a bad joke from an older generation. I should have taken it as foreshadowing. Lily was born by emergency C-section after 18 hours of labor that went nowhere. I was exhausted, shaking, terrified. They whisked her over to the warmer, suctioned her, then finally put her on my chest. I cried the messy, ugly cry of someone who isn't sure they're allowed to be happy yet. Mark cried too. He kissed both of us, took 1,000,000 photos, posted "Welcome to the world, Princess" on Facebook within an hour because of course he did. Diane showed up at the hospital the next morning at 7 a.m. with a camera, a notebook, and a full list of concerns. Why is she swaddled like that? Is she getting enough to eat? So they just cut you open and sent you home. In my day, we stayed a week. You look really pale. Are you sure you're okay to be alone with her? I was 24 hours post major abdominal surgery. No, I was not okay, but I also wasn't incompetent. I tried to set boundaries from the start. "I'm tired," I said. "We need to rest. Please don't take photos of me without asking." She laughed. "Oh, honey, nobody's looking at you. It's all about the baby," she said, and snapped away anyway. Looking back, this was the moment where Mark should have stepped in. He should have said, "Mom, back off. She just gave birth." Instead, he scrolled his phone and said, "She's just excited." The first weeks at home were rough. Any parent will tell you that the newborn days are a blur of feeding, diapers, crying, and worry. Add C-section recovery and sleep deprivation and hormones, and it becomes a special kind of hell. We had some good moments. Soft little snuggles at 2 a.m., that tiny squeaky newborn breathing, the way her fingers curled around mine. We also had some very bad nights when Lily screamed for hours, and I wanted to crawl out of my own skin. Diane inserted herself into everything. She popped by almost every day. Sometimes she'd come with food, which was actually nice. Other times she'd just show up, let herself in. Mark had given her a key without asking me, and start helping by criticizing everything I did. She doesn't like being held like that, she'd say, and take Lily out of my arms. You're not latching her right, she'd say, trying to rearrange my breast like I was a piece of furniture. Look at this mess, she'd say, taking photos of dishes in the sink and laundry on the couch to show you later what you should keep up with. I told Mark it was too much. I need space, I said. Your mom is stressing me out. I'm already struggling. He sighed. She's just trying to help, he said. She raised 2 kids. You're a first-time mom. Maybe listen to her. I am listening, I said. But she's also rude. I don't need to be told I look like a zombie every time she sees me. He rolled his eyes. It's not her fault you're sensitive, he said. It's hormones. Don't take it so personally. Around 6 weeks postpartum, my OB screened me for postpartum depression. I answered honestly. Yes, I cried a lot. Yes, I felt overwhelmed. No, I did not want to hurt myself or the baby. Yes, I often felt like a failure. She was kind. She said, "This is very common. It sounds more like postpartum anxiety and adjustment than severe depression, but I want you to know there's help if you need it." We talked about therapy, support groups, maybe medication if things got worse. She reminded me that lack of sleep can make everything feel catastrophic. When I told Mark later, he laughed. "Of course they want to put you on meds," he said. "That's what doctors do." "I'm not on anything," I said. "She just said to watch it." Diane overheard and latched on. "Hormonal mood disorders after birth are very serious," she said with fake concern. "My friend's daughter had postpartum psychosis and thought her baby was a doll. You have to be careful. We should probably keep a closer eye on you." "Mom, don't scare her," Mark said. But he didn't tell her she was wrong. The first time I realized they were documenting me was over something stupid. I'd been up literally all night with Lily, who decided sleep was for cowards. At 7 a.m., Mark came into the nursery and found me sitting on the floor next to the crib, crying silently while Lily screamed in my arms. He took her from me gently. "I'll take her," he said. "Go lie down." I stumbled to our bed, collapsed, and slept harder than I'd slept in weeks. When I woke up, my phone was buzzing with a message from Diane. "Are you okay? Mark sent me the video. You look scary." I froze. "What video?" When I asked Mark, he brushed it off. "Just a short clip," he said. "I was concerned. I wanted Mom's advice." "You recorded me?" I asked, while I was breaking down. He shrugged. "I had the baby in one arm," he said. "I thought, wow, she looks like she's about to lose it. I wanted another opinion." I felt sick. "I was exhausted," I said. "That's all, not dangerous, exhausted." "I know," he said. "But from the outside it looked bad. Try to see it objectively." I started to wonder, objectively for who? Over the next months, little things added up. I'd walk into the living room and see Diane quickly putting her phone away after filming Lily crying in the swing, while I heated a bottle. "Just capturing memories," she'd say. I'd find photos on Mark's phone of messy rooms, overflowing laundry baskets, dirty dishes. "Why do you take these?" I asked once. "To show you later," he said. "So you can see how bad it gets when you're in one of your funks. You don't seem to notice at the time." In one of my funks. Like I was a broken appliance. He also started translating my feelings to other people in a way that made me sound unstable. At his sister's birthday dinner, when someone asked how motherhood was, I said, "It's really hard, but I love her." He chimed in, "She's been up and down, very emotional. Sometimes I worry about her, but we're managing." I stared at him. Later in the car, I said, "Why did you say that? You made me sound crazy." He shrugged. "I'm just being honest," he said. "You're not exactly stable lately." "I'm tired," I said. There's a difference. There's a thin line, he replied. That sentence would come back to haunt him. At Lily's 6-month pediatrician appointment, the doctor asked how I was doing. Better, I said. She sleeps a bit more now. I still get anxious, but I'm okay. Mark interrupted. She cries a lot, he told the doctor. Like, a lot. Sometimes I come home and the house is a disaster and she's just holding the baby and sobbing. The doctor looked at me. Is that true? She asked gently. I felt exposed, like a bug under a magnifying glass. Yes, I admitted. Sometimes, but I'm not out of control, I just get overwhelmed. The doctor nodded. Sleep deprivation does that, she said. Have you been able to nap while the baby sleeps? Mark snorted. She never naps, he said. She just doom scrolls Instagram and then says she's too tired to cook. I wanted to scream that he had no idea what my days were like, but I also didn't want to look hysterical, so I swallowed it. After the appointment, the pediatrician pulled me aside for a moment. If you ever feel like you're not being heard at home, she said quietly, you can always call our office directly. For you, not just the baby. I didn't understand what she meant yet. I would. The CPS threat started as a joke. Lily was around 10 months old. She had just started crawling, getting into everything, pulling books off shelves, chewing on shoes if we turned our backs for 2 seconds. One day, the living room looked like a bomb went off. Toys everywhere, snacks on the floor, laundry piles, baby drool on the coffee table. I flopped on the couch and said, "Wow, this place is a disaster." Mark took out his phone, snapped a photo and said, "Smile, I'm sending this to CPS." I looked at him. "That's not funny," I said. He laughed. "Relax," he said. "I'm kidding. But seriously, if someone walked in right now, they'd think you were drowning." "I am drowning," I said. "You're just watching." He rolled his eyes. "Here we go," he said under his breath. "Cue the martyr monologue." I dropped it. But Diane didn't. She started making little comments like, "If a social worker saw all these crumbs, they'd faint." Or, CPS actually checks on moms who look as tired as you." I never knew if she was joking. I just knew my stomach dropped every time. The actual CPS call came after Lily's first birthday. We had a small party, a few family members, a smash cake, photos. I was exhausted but happy. I thought maybe we were turning a corner. 2 weeks later, a woman knocked on our door in the middle of the afternoon. She had a badge. "Hi," she said. "I'm Sarah with Child Protective Services. We received an anonymous report and need to follow up." My entire body went cold. I'd heard the horror stories. I knew how invasive and terrifying CPS visits could be, even for good parents. Lily was in her high chair wearing yogurt and a onesie. The kitchen was mid-lunch chaos. I was in leggings and a stained t-shirt. My hair was in a greasy bun. I felt like I was already failing an exam I didn't know I was taking. "Of course," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Come in." She was professional but not unkind. She sat on the couch, opened a folder and said, "I'm going to explain why I'm here and then ask you some questions, okay?" "Okay," I said, heart pounding. "First," she said, "I want you to know that my job is to make sure children are safe. Safety doesn't mean perfection. We're not here because your house is messy or your kid cries. We're here because someone raised concerns. We have to check." I nodded. "What concerns?" I asked. She glanced at the paper. "The report mentioned," she read, "that the mother appears emotionally unstable, cries in front of the baby, leaves the baby in soiled diapers for long periods, and neglects basic household hygiene to the point where it could be a health hazard." I stared at her. I do cry sometimes, I said, but I don't neglect her, ever. She nodded. I can see Lily looks clean and fed right now, she said. We'll talk through everything. She asked about our routines, feeding, sleeping, doctor visits, support system. She looked in the fridge, the pantry, Lily's room, the bathroom. She asked permission to see Lily's diaper area to check for rash. She asked if either of us drank heavily or used drugs. It was invasive and humiliating, even though I had nothing to hide. At one point she asked, "Has there been conflict with any family members about your parenting?" I almost laughed. His mother, I said. She thinks she's the third parent. I told Sarah about Diane's constant criticism, the photos, the comments about CPS, the way she and Mark talked about me like I was always on the verge of a breakdown. I did not accuse them directly of making the report, but I could see on her face she was connecting dots. She closed her folder after an hour. "Here's what I see," she said. "You're a tired mom of a 1-year-old. This house looks like a house with a toddler. Your daughter is attached to you, comfortable, clean, hitting her milestones. I don't see immediate safety concerns." I burst into tears. "I swear I'm trying," I said. "I'm just always tired." "I can tell you care," she said. "What concerns me more is how scared you are of this process. Has anyone in your life used CPS as a threat against you before?" I swallowed. "His mother likes to joke about it," I said. "My husband too, sometimes." She tilted her head. "I can't tell you who made the report," she said, "but I can tell you that we take false or malicious reports seriously. If someone is using CPS to harass you, that matters." She gave me a card. "If anything escalates, or if you feel like someone is trying to weaponize this system against you, call your pediatrician, and you can also call this number," she said. "And if your situation at home ever feels unsafe, there are organizations we can refer you to." When she left, I sat on the floor and shook. Mark came home an hour later. "How was your day?" he asked casually. I stared at him. "CPS came," I said. He did a good impression of surprise. Why?" he asked. "Someone reported that I neglect Lily and that the house is a health hazard," I said. "They described me crying in front of her and letting her sit in dirty diapers." He frowned. "Wow," he said. "That's weird. Maybe one of the neighbors. You've been having some rough days." Diane called that evening just to check in. "So how did the inspection go?" she asked. My blood ran cold. I hadn't told her. "How did you know CPS came?" I asked. Silence. Then fake casual. "Oh, I just assumed someone finally said something. Mark mentioned you'd been extra emotional. I thought maybe the doctor called someone." My skin crawled. I didn't say it out loud, but I knew. They had done this. If this were a different story, I might have immediately confronted Mark with, "Did you call CPS on me?" But I'd been living with him long enough to know that he was good at twisting things. He'd say I was just worried, or they told us it was anonymous, or you're paranoid. So I did something different. I started collecting proof. First, I called Lily's pediatrician and told her about the CPS visit. "I wondered when you'd call," she said. "What do you mean?" I asked. "We got a copy of the report," she said, "because they mentioned medical neglect. I read it. It said you missed multiple appointments, refused vaccines, and that I had expressed concern about your mental state." I felt sick. "I've never missed an appointment," I said. "I've never refused a vaccine, and you said I seemed anxious but appropriate." She sighed. "I know," she said. "Our records show you've been on time, followed every recommendation, and asked appropriate questions." She lowered her voice. "I can't tell you who made the report," she said, but I can write a letter stating that, from a medical standpoint, I have no concerns about Lily's care. And I can note that whoever filed that report misrepresented my comments. Would you? I asked, voice shaking. Absolutely, she said. I've seen this before. CPS isn't perfect, but they are starting to recognize patterns of weaponization, especially with postpartum moms and in-laws. Weaponization. Second, I bought a cheap audio recorder and stuck it in the living room under a shelf. I also learned how to use the voice memo app on my phone discreetly. I live in a one-party consent state. That means I can record conversations I'm part of without telling the other person. I started recording anytime Diane came over, anytime Mark started one of his concerned monologues. I got recordings of things like, "Diane, if you can't handle a little crying, maybe Lily would be better off spending more time with me." Mark, "Mom, don't say that." Laughing, Diane, "I'm serious. CPS sees moms who melt down like that as unstable. They'd see my house and be relieved." And, Mark, "Look, if someone called CPS, that's not on me. That's on whoever thought you looked out of control." Me, "You mean whoever filmed me and sent videos to their mommy." Mark, "You don't know that. You're paranoid. That's another sign you're not okay." I documented every time they said unstable, psychotic, dangerous, unfit. I also documented my actual life. Videos of me feeding Lily, playing with her, reading to her, taking her to the park. Photos of her bedroom, our pantry, the bath time routine. Third, I quietly booked a therapy appointment. I found a counselor who specialized in postpartum mental health. She listened to everything: how tired I was, how little support I had, how Mark and Diane talked to me, how CPS had come. "How do you feel right now?" she asked after I poured it out. "Tired," I said. "Scared, but not crazy. I know what's real. I know my baby is loved. I know I'm not neglecting her." She nodded. "You sound anxious and traumatized by what's happened," she said, "but not delusional, not psychotic, not dangerous. What I'm hearing is that your support system has turned into a control system." She too used that word, control. We agreed to meet weekly. She started documenting in her notes that I was coherent, appropriate, bonded with my baby, and that my anxiety was situational and understandable given what was happening. She also gave me the name of a family lawyer. "Just in case you ever need to know your rights," she said. The breaking point came 3 months after the CPS visit. Lily was about 15 months old, walking, babbling, obsessed with stacking blocks and throwing them at the dog. I came home from a quick grocery run to find Diane alone in my living room with Lily. "Where was Mark?" "He had to run out," Diane said. "He said it was fine, I'm here." I took Lily from her, trying not to show how angry I was. "You don't just get to be here unsupervised with my child without me agreeing," I said. "You are not her parent." Diane's face hardened. "Someone has to be the stable one," she said. "We all see how you are. Crying, yelling, letting the house go. Mark is at his breaking point." Something in me snapped. "I am doing my best," I said. "You are making everything worse. You called CPS on me." She didn't deny it. She just smiled thinly. "CPS cares about children, not your feelings," she said. "If a mother can't cope, it's better for everyone to get involved early. You should be grateful we're trying to keep Lily safe." I actually laughed. It sounded hysterical, but it was more disbelief than anything. "Safe from what?" I asked. "From a messy kitchen, from a mother who sometimes cries, or from the grandmother who thinks she owns her?" She leaned forward. "From a mother who might snap," she said quietly. "Don't think we haven't seen the way you look when she cries. If CPS saw you on your worst days, they'd hand her to me and breathe a sigh of relief." It was like listening to a villain in a movie. I realized then, she genuinely believed she would be better as Lily's primary caregiver than I was. And Mark hadn't stopped her. I went to my bedroom, shut the door, and turned on my voice memo app. My hands were shaking, but my voice was calm when I made a call. Not to the police, not yet. To the family lawyer my therapist had recommended. "Hi," I said. "My name is Naeem. I think my husband and his mother are trying to build a case to take my baby, and they've already called CPS on me once. I need to know what my options are." The lawyer, Julia, met with me 2 days later. I brought everything: the pediatrician's letter, CPS's visit summary, they had mailed it, my therapist's note, and a flash drive with audio clips. She listened, read, and then sat back. "Okay," she said. "Let me start with something very important. Being a tired, crying, overwhelmed mom with a messy house is not grounds to lose your child. CPS is not in the business of stealing children from loving, safe homes, no matter what your mother-in-law thinks." I exhaled shakily. "But they already came," I said. "What if she keeps calling? If she keeps making false or exaggerated reports, that can backfire on her," Julia said. "CPS doesn't like being used as a weapon. They document patterns. If they've already closed your case with no findings, that's in your favor." She flipped through my therapist's summary and the pediatrician's letter. "These are gold," she said. "Your child's doctor saying you're compliant and attentive. A licensed therapist saying you're anxious but not dangerous. That's exactly what we'd want if this ever went to court." She tapped the flash drive. "And these recordings, do they clearly show them threatening CPS, calling you unstable, hinting at taking the baby?" "Yes," I said. "I can find specific timestamps." She smiled grimly. "Then what your husband and mother-in-law think is a pile of evidence is actually a pile of documentation of their behavior," she said. "You are not powerless here." I started to cry. I thought if I left, he'd tell everyone I was crazy and CPS would believe him, I said. "He keeps saying no judge would trust me over him and his mom." She shook her head. "Judges see this exact pattern all the time," she said. "Controlling spouse, over-involved grandparent, concern used as a way to undermine the primary caregiver. You are not the first. You will not be the last. The difference is you're documenting it." She asked me the question that both my therapist and the CPS worker had implied. "Do you feel safe staying in this marriage?" I thought about Diane alone with my baby, planning a life where I was the visitor. I thought about Mark recording my worst moments and sending them to his mother instead of helping me. "No," I said, "I don't." "Then we make a plan," she said, carefully. Over the next month, I did what so many women in stories like this do. I stayed on the surface and escaped underneath. On the surface, I went through the motions: cooked, cleaned, played with Lily, made small talk with Mark. I didn't pick fights. I didn't mention CPS again. Underneath, I opened my own bank account at a different bank and slowly moved small amounts of money from a joint savings account that was partly funded by my parents' gifts. Made copies of Lily's birth certificate, my ID, our insurance cards, and stored them at Julia's office. Talked to the CPS worker, Sarah, and told her I suspected the report had come from Diane and/or Mark. She made a note in their file about possible malicious reporting. Asked my therapist to write a more detailed summary of our sessions, emphasizing my attachment to Lily and my insight into my own mental health. Found a small apartment through a local women's organization that I could move into quickly if I had to. I also quietly let some trusted people in on what was happening. My sister, who lived out of state, was furious. "If I have to fly in and stand in that courtroom myself, I will," she said. "You are not crazy, they are." Lily's daycare provider, We'd started part-time care to give me a break. Wrote a letter describing me as a loving, engaged, calm mother, and Lily as securely attached. Every piece of evidence was a brick in the wall I was building between my daughter and their narrative. The final straw came when I accidentally overheard exactly what they were planning. I was putting laundry away in our bedroom. The baby monitor was on so I could hear Lily in her room. I heard the front door open and Diane's voice. "I just don't know how much longer you can let this go on," she said. "She's clearly not stable. Today when I came in, she was just staring at the wall. The baby could have choked or fallen for all she knew." "She snapped at me for leaving you alone with the baby," Mark said. "She said you're not her parent." Diane scoffed. "Somebody has to be," she said. "Listen to me, Mark. The longer you wait, the more attached Lily gets. If you call CPS again now and tell them you're concerned, they'll see a pattern. They'll know you tried to get help earlier." My heart started pounding. I turned the baby monitor down so they wouldn't hear the static if they came near, slipped my phone out of my pocket, and hit record. "I don't want them to take her away forever," Mark said. "I just want my name to get help, real help. Maybe if they see how she yells and cries, they'll insist on it, and then we can get temporary custody to Mom while she's in treatment." "Exactly," Diane said. "You position it as concern, not attack. Say you're worried about postpartum psychosis. Use that phrase, they take that seriously." My knees almost gave out. They weren't just sloppily calling CPS anymore. They were strategizing. "Mom, what if she leaves?" Mark asked. "Takes the baby and just goes." Diane sniffed. "She has nowhere to go," she said. "No money, no family here. She'd be stupid to leave the stability you provide." I smiled grimly in the closet. They had just told me exactly how they saw me. Trapped, weak, dependent. They were wrong. I played the recording for Julia and for my therapist. Both reacted the same way, a mix of anger and grim satisfaction. "This is exactly the kind of thing judges and CPS investigators need to hear," Julia said. "They're not just random concerned relatives. They're actively conspiring to manipulate a government agency to remove your child from you." My therapist added it to her notes. "Whatever they tell themselves about helping, this is about control," she said. We decided it was time. Time to leave. Time to file. Time to stop letting them write the story. The actual leaving was anticlimactic. It was a Tuesday morning. Mark was at work. Diane was at her own house, likely planning her next helpful drop-in. I packed 2 suitcases, one for me, one for Lily. Clothes, important toys, sentimental items I couldn't bear to leave. I left the furniture. I could replace furniture. I strapped Lily into her car seat, kissed her cheeks, and told her, "We're going on an adventure." We drove to the small apartment the women's organization had helped me secure. It wasn't fancy, but it was ours. Then I went to Julia's office and signed paperwork. Petition for legal separation, request for temporary primary custody, and a motion for a court order that neither party could contact CPS without written notice to the other unless there was a genuine emergency. In the documents, Julia laid everything out. The previous CPS visit with no findings, the pediatrician and therapist letters, the daycare provider's statement, and screenshots of the most damning parts of that recording transcript. Later that afternoon, a process server handed Mark the papers at his office. My phone exploded with calls, texts, voicemails. I didn't answer. Julia sent him a short email. "My client will be communicating through counsel only." Diane called from a blocked number and left a voicemail dripping with venom. "How dare you take my granddaughter," she hissed. "You think some judge is going to believe your act? We have records, we have photos. You will regret this." We added that voicemail to the file too. At the first temporary orders hearing, Mark showed up with a lawyer and with Diane. She sat in the front row, clutching a folder like her life depended on it. Mark looked tired but polished in a suit. He told the judge in a wounded voice that he loved his wife, that she had changed after the baby, that she refused help, that she screamed and cried all the time, that the house was often unsafe, and that he reluctantly called CPS out of concern. His lawyer tried to paint him as the responsible parent who had reached out for help when his wife had mental health issues. Then it was our turn. Julia started with the CPS report. In this case, she said, CPS visited, found no evidence of abuse or neglect and closed the case. The home was messy but not unsafe. The child was healthy and bonded to her mother. We have that in writing. She handed up the pediatrician's letter, the therapist's summary, and the daycare provider's statement. The judge read, eyebrows rising. Then she pulled out the transcript of the recording. More importantly, Your Honor, Julia said, we have evidence that Mr. Last Name and his mother were not neutrally concerned about my client's mental health, but actively plotting to use Child Protective Services as a tool to remove the child from her mother and place her with the grandmother. She read the most damning lines. Diane, if you call CPS again now and tell them you're concerned, they'll see a pattern. Mark, and then we can get temporary custody to Mom while she's in treatment. Diane, position it as concern, not attack. Say you're worried about postpartum psychosis. Use that phrase. The courtroom was silent. Mark's face went white. Diane's went red. Mark's lawyer sputtered that the recording was taken out of context, that they didn't really mean it, that it was just a scared family brainstorming. The judge looked at them over his glasses. Brainstorming how to manipulate CPS into building a case against the child's primary caregiver, he said dryly. Interesting strategy. He turned to me. Mrs. Last Name, he said, do you feel you can safely co-parent with your husband while his mother is this involved? I took a breath. I'm willing to co-parent with Mark, I said. I am not willing to co-parent with his mother. She has consistently tried to undermine me, and she used CPS as a weapon. I'm scared she'll keep doing it if she has unlimited access. The judge nodded slowly. Here's what we're going to do, he said. He granted temporary, primary physical custody to me. Joint legal custody, but with a specific note that medical and educational decisions would be made by me in consultation with Mark, not Diane. A structured visitation schedule for Mark that did not include unsupervised visits at his mother's house until further evaluation. A court order that neither party nor any family member was to contact CPS about the other without immediate notification to all counsel, unless the child was in immediate danger, in which case the court wanted a report afterward explaining why it was necessary. A recommendation for a parenting coordinator, and for Mark to attend an individual parenting class focused on boundaries with extended family. He also looked at Diane directly and said, Ma'am, grandparents are important, but you are not this child's parent. If you continue to insert yourself in a way that undermines the actual parents or misuses state resources, this court can and will limit your contact. Diane's mouth opened and closed. For once she was speechless. We're still in the middle of the long, slow process of turning temporary orders into permanent ones. But here's where things stand now. I live in a small, slightly messy, very loving home with Lily. There are toys on the floor, Cheerios under the couch, and crayon marks on the wall. There is also laughter, bedtime stories, and a little girl who runs to me with open arms. I'm in therapy, not because I'm crazy, but because someone tried very hard to make me feel that way, and I want to break that pattern for my daughter. CPS has not been back. Sarah, the worker, called once to check in and said, "If anyone tries to use us against you again, we have notes now. They will not like how that goes." Mark sees Lily regularly. Sometimes it goes well. Sometimes he sulks about how dramatic I was to leave. He is on a short leash when it comes to involving his mother. One wrong move, and our lawyer will be back in front of the judge with the recording. As for Diane, she tells everyone I stole her granddaughter. What she doesn't mention is that she tried to steal my motherhood first. When I rock Lily to sleep now, I think about how close I came to believing their version of me. Unstable, dangerous, unfit. I think about every mom sitting in a messy living room, crying from exhaustion, being told she's crazy for feeling overwhelmed. And I want to say this. Crying in front of your baby is not abuse. A sink full of dishes is not neglect. Being tired and anxious and human does not make you an unfit mother. What makes someone dangerous is not tears. It's the willingness to lie, manipulate, and weaponize systems that are supposed to protect children, all to get what they want. My husband liked to joke that if CPS ever walked in, they'd see I was the crazy one. He was wrong. When CPS walked in, they saw a tired mom and a loved baby. And when a judge listened to the full story, including the parts they thought were secret, he saw exactly who the problem was. It wasn't the woman crying on the nursery floor. It was the people standing in the doorway, filming her instead of helping. So what do you think? If your partner and their mother started taking photos of your worst moments, talking behind your back about how unstable you were, and then actually called CPS on you to try to make the grandmother the primary caregiver, would you stay and hope they calmed down? Or would you, like me, start documenting everything, find a lawyer, and let their own evidence become the case against them? Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video, tell us whose side you're on in the comments, and subscribe to Reddit Story Vault for more full Reddit-style stories about relationships, toxic in-laws, CPS drama, and legal revenge every day.